a big box and two bags, contained nothing but personal effects. There was a bundle of newspapers on the mantelpiece. Ganimard opened them. They all spoke of the theft of the Jewish lamp. An hour later, when Ganimard and Shears left the house, they knew no more about the strange individual whom their intervention had driven to suicide. Who was he? Why had he taken his life? What link connected him with the disappearance of the Jewish lamp? Who was it that dogged his steps during his walk? These were all complicated questions. So many mysteries. Holmlock Shears went to bed in a very bad temper. When he woke, he received an express letter couched in these words: Arsène Lupin begs to inform you of his tragic decease in the person of one Bresson, and requests the honor of your company at his funeral, which will take place at the public expense on Thursday, the 25th of June. Chapter 2. You see, old chap, said Holmlock Shears to Wilson, waving Arsène Lupin's letter in his hand, the worst of this business is that I feel the confounded fellow's eye constantly fixed upon me. Not one of my most secret thoughts escape him. I'm behaving like an actor whose steps are ruled by the strictest stage directions, who moves here or there and says this or that because a superior will has so determined it. Do you understand, Wilson? Wilson would no doubt have understood, had he not been sleeping the sound sleep of a man whose temperature is fluctuating between 102 and 104 degrees. But whether he heard or not made no difference to Shears, who continued: It will need all my energy and all my resources not to be discouraged. Fortunately with me, these little jibes are only so many pinpricks which stimulate me to further exertions. Once the sting is allayed and the wound in my self-respect closed, I always end by saying, laugh away, my lad. Sooner or later you will be betrayed by your own hand. For, when all is said, Wilson, wasn't it Lupin himself who, with his first telegram and the reflection which it suggested to that little Henriette, revealed to me the secret of his correspondence with Alice Demun? You forget that detail, old chap. He walked up and down the room, with resounding strides, at the risk of waking old chap. However, things might be worse, and though the paths which I am following appear a little dark, I am beginning to see my way. To start with, I shall soon know all about Master Bresson. Ganimard and I have an appointment on the bank of the Seine, at the spot where Bresson flung his parcel, and we shall find out who he was and what he wanted. As regards the rest, it's a game to be played out between Alice Demun and me. Not a very powerful adversary, huh, Wilson? And don't you think I shall soon know the sentence in the album, and what those two single letters mean, the C and the H? For the whole mystery lies in that, Wilson. At this moment, Mademoiselle entered the room, and seeing Shears wave his arms about, said: Mr. Shears, I shall be very angry with you if you wake my patient. It's not nice of you to disturb him. The doctor insists upon absolute calm. He looked at her without a word, astonished, as on the first day, at her inexplicable composure. Why do you look at me like that, Mr. Shears? You always seem to have something at the back of your mind. What is it? Tell me, please. She questioned him with all her bright face, with her guileless eyes, her smiling lips, and with her attitude too, her hands joined together, her body bent slightly forward. And so great was her candor that it roused the Englishman's anger. He came up to her and said in a low voice: Bresson committed suicide yesterday. She repeated, without appearing to understand: Bresson committed suicide yesterday? As a matter of fact, her features underwent no change whatever. Nothing revealed the effort of a lie. You have been told, he said irritably. If not, you would at least have started. You were cleverer than I thought. But why pretend? He took the picture book, which he had placed on a table close at hand, and opening it at the cut page: Can you tell me, he asked, in what order I am to arrange the letters missing here, so that I may understand the exact purport of the note which you sent to Bresson 4 days before the theft of the Jewish lamp? In what order? Bresson? The theft of the Jewish lamp? She repeated the words, slowly, as though to make out their meaning. He insisted. "Yes, here are the letters you used on this scrap of paper. What were you saying to Bresson?" The letters I used? What was I saying to? Suddenly she burst out laughing. "I see, I understand. I am an accomplice in the theft. There is a Monsieur Bresson who stole a Jewish lamp and killed himself, and I am the gentleman's friend. Oh, how amusing! Then whom did you go to see yesterday evening on the second floor of a house in the Avenue des Ternes?" "Whom? Why, my dressmaker, Mademoiselle Langeais." "Do you mean to imply that my dressmaker and my friend Monsieur Bresson are one and the same person?" Shears began to doubt, in spite of all. It is possible to counterfeit almost any feeling in such a way as to put another person off: terror, joy, anxiety, but not indifference, not happy and careless laughter. However, he said: "One last word. Why did you accost me at the Gare du Nord the other evening? And why did you beg me to go back at once without busying myself about the robbery?" "Oh, you're much too curious, Mr. Shears," she replied, still laughing in the most natural way. "To punish you, I will tell you nothing, and in addition you shall watch the patient while I go to the chemist. There's an urgent prescription to be made up. I must hurry." She left the room. "I have been tricked," muttered Shears. "I've not only got nothing out of her, but I have given myself away." And he remembered the case of the blue diamond and the cross-examination to which he had subjected Clotilde Destange. Mademoiselle had encountered him with the same serenity as the blonde lady, and he felt that he was again face to face with one of those creatures who, protected by Arsène Lupin and under the direct action of his influence, preserve the most inscrutable calmness amid the very agony of danger. Shears, Shears. It was Wilson calling him. He went to the bed and bent over him. "What is it, old chap? Feeling bad?" Wilson moved his lips, but was unable to speak. At last, after many efforts, he stammered out: "No, Shears, it wasn't she. It can't have been." "What nonsense are you talking now? I tell you that it was she. It's only when I'm in the presence of a creature of Lupin's, trained and drilled by him, that I lose my head and behave so foolishly. She now knows the whole story of the album. I bet you that Lupin will be told in less than an hour. Less than an hour? What am I talking about? This moment, most likely. The chemist, the urgent prescription, humbug!" Without a further thought of Wilson, he rushed from the room, went down the Avenue de Messine and saw Mademoiselle enter a chemist's shop. She came out, 10 minutes later, carrying 2 or 3 medicine bottles wrapped up in white paper. But, when she returned up the avenue, she was accosted by a man who followed her, cap in hand, and with an obsequious air as though he were begging. She stopped, gave him an alms, and then continued on her way. "She spoke to him," said the Englishman to himself. It was an intuition rather than a certainty, but strong enough to induce him to alter his tactics. Leaving the girl, he set off on the track of the sham beggar. They arrived, in this way, one behind the other, on the Place Saint-Ferdinand, and the man hovered long round Bresson's house, sometimes raising his eyes to the second-floor windows and watching the people who entered the house. At the end of an hour's time, he climbed to the top of a tram-car that was starting for Neuilly. Shears climbed up also and sat down behind the fellow at some little distance, beside a gentleman whose features were concealed by the newspaper which he was reading. When they reached the fortifications, the newspaper was lowered. Shears recognized Ganimard, and Ganimard, pointing to the fellow, said in his ear: "It's our man of last night, the one who followed Bresson. He's been hanging round the square for an hour." "Nothing new about Bresson?" "Yes, a letter arrived this morning addressed to him." "This morning? Then it must have been posted yesterday, before the writer knew of Bresson's death." "Just so. It is with the examining magistrate, but I can tell you the exact words. He accepts no compromise. He wants everything, the first thing as well as those of the second business. If not, he will take steps. And no signature," added Ganimard. "As you can see, those few lines won't be of much use to us." "I don't agree with you at all, Monsieur Ganimard. On the contrary, I consider them very interesting." "In